Okay, go.
This is Allison Jacobson from Midlife Maverick, and you are listening to Vroom, Vroom, Veer with Jeff Smith, reminding you to create a kick-ass life in midlife.
Perfect. Yes. Way better than the thing I wrote. All right, let me hit stop. I'll be right back.
Are you ready to thoughtfully steer away from your revved up, frenzied, and far too often scripted life? Then welcome to Vroom Vroom Veer with Jeff Smith, where he guides you down the road differently traveled by sharing unique experiences with guests who have managed to shift away from a life stuck on cruise control and veered their way into a more authentic and fulfilling one in all sorts of interesting and kind of remarkable ways. Get ready to Vroom Vroom Veer with your differently traveled road chauffeur, Jeff Smith.
Wendy Wright, thank you so much for being on Vroom Vroom Veer and welcome to the show. How's it going?
Thanks, Jeff. I'm glad to be here. I really love telling people how financial therapy can help.
Yes, and it can help you sleep at night.
And it can help you sleep. Imagine sleeping every night of the year,
Yes.
even tax season. Yes.
And then if you happen to wake up and go, oh my God, then you go, oh, wait, I have a plan.
Yes, exactly. Oh my
and
gosh.
You go back to sleep.
That is my dream for everybody. Yes.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So, okay. So let's talk a little bit about wait a minute. I'll make sure I get this right. So you are at financialtherapysolutions.com. So talk a little bit about what you're most excited about, your website and your business today.
Okay. I just finished putting together a series, a program called Money Mindset Shift. And it is, if I can say humbly, some of my best stuff. And I say that not because I'm so great, but because these are tools that my clients have been using for years, and it has made definite measurable changes in their relationship with money. And so the Money Mindset Shift takes you through a lot of the mindset. There's, mindfulness, there's breathing, there's things like that. And so, given the time frame of this, like I would really need some beta testers. So if anyone that's listening, the first 5 people who email me that tell me they heard us, talk about it, I will send them a free link to it to get some opinions. It's, probably worth a couple of $1,000s of my time. So, but it's really cool. And then just really helping people more and more with my approach is kind of unique because I'm a licensed therapist and I'm a trained money coach. And so that's why it's called Financial Therapy Solutions, because I bring in both the therapy part, because if you've heard, research supports upwards of 80% of our financial decisions are emotionally based.
Totally.
And so we want to look at that. We want to see how to make shifts with that. And therapy is a great way to do that. And then the coaching comes in. And I will tell people, I'll give them ideas of things to try. But because we're looking at therapeutically, if they do it, we learn some things. And if they don't do it, that's great too, because that tells us some things like maybe where some avoidance or fear is. And so that is the approach that I take. It's very unique. There's still not very many financial therapists in the world yet.
It's a relatively new term, actually.
Yeah. Had you heard of it before?
Yes.
When did you first hear about it?
Only recently. I think I was listening to NPR. And the interviewer was interviewing a financial therapist, and they were giggling a lot about the term. And not because it's bad, it's because it's new.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
It's like, yes, we need, and I'm listening to it and I'm going, yes. Yes. Well, I mean, I went and did a psychology degree. Right. So, and then I stopped at the bachelor's level. Right. But that's me. But I was definitely interested in finding out, like why we do what we do. Right. And why, so definitely, I mean, it seems like a perfect mix to me.
It is. It really is.
And you got fortunate to have a background, right? So let's use this to figure out, to go back in time because it's an interesting mix of superpowers that you've souped up here, which I love.
That's a good way to put it. Yes. Yes.
So where did it start? Did you start on the therapy side or did you start on the money side? Okay. So okay. Talk about it.
Yeah. So my undergrad is actually in business marketing with emphasis on marketing and computer information systems. Wow. And then I was in mortgage banking for a while and used all of that. But even when I was in mortgage banking, one of the things I loved the most was the interview, the sitting down with clients and them talking through, because if anyone's, applied for a mortgage, raise your hand if you felt super exposed. Don't raise your hand if you're driving, of course. But, if you were like, why are you asking me this? Oh, my gosh.
Right.
And so it was a good precursor to financial therapy and actually more fun for me because in financial therapy, we talk about it all. We talk about numbers. We look at it and then it'll be like, okay, here's the balance in that account. How do you feel about that balance? What do you think about that balance?
Right.
And by adding the thoughts and feelings, we are adding meaning to it. And then that helps us communicate about it. So the mortgage banking, and then I was a realtor, I flipped some houses. And then of course the market crashed and that wasn't fun anymore. So I stopped doing that and
gotta find a new
got my therapy.
Now? Okay.
Yeah, exactly. Had my therapy degree in the middle of all that and had a private practice then. And then I worked in eating disorder treatment centers. And then I came back into private practice and focused on financial therapy at that point. So it's been fun for me. I like doing different things. And I also am very entrepreneurial. So I also love business consulting. I have a lot of business owners, especially like solopreneurs that'll come for sessions and we talk through their relationship with money and their business. And that's super powerful stuff too.
That's amazing. You got, it's perfect. When you said that
for me,
the last time I did a mortgage, it was very, very trying is what I'll say. I can't really put my finger on it. Why, but it seemed like going through it, like they asked for everything that the book could possibly imagine them.
Yes.
For me to, is like, oh no, you have to account for all these times you didn't have a job. Okay.
Yes.
You have to account for all, it's like, are you just making me try to feel bad?
Yeah, I know. Well, especially because when you're doing a mortgage, they're looking for a reason to deny you. Like that's what they're looking for. So they're really poking around and
which is a good thing. I don't want to pick at that because there was way too much not doing that for a very long time. So there's got to be a balance.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. But it's also super helpful to think about the mortgage application process and to think about the mortgage payment that you're about to engage upon. And one of the things that I ask people to do often when we're working on the emotions of buying a house, because I've got the mortgage banking, the real estate, I've bought and sold houses myself. So there's sometimes we're in session and we're really working on this. And this is one of my favorite things to work on. This my background and my comfort with talking about it, because one of the first things I'll ask people to do is whatever mortgage payment. So this is a tip for the audience, but only write it down if you're not driving. Whatever mortgage payment you're about to embark upon, start paying it 3 or 4 months to your savings account before you get the mortgage.
Yeah.
Because you want to feel that. It's one thing to think it.
Right.
And it's another thing to feel it and to look at what are you trading for it. And so that's a big part of how we might approach it from a therapeutic, because then I'm going to ask them to journal about it. Pay this to your savings account and journal some thoughts and feelings. Yeah.
Wow. I love it. So let's get into this whole thing because I love all this stuff, especially let's see here. How do we think about money and how do we change or improve our relationship with money? Right.
Yes.
Because that's like, beyond the spousal communication thing, I think that's gotta be the big one. It's just like thinking about money and our relationship to it.
Yeah, our relationship to money is so powerful and often like it seems invisible. So if we don't think we have a relationship with money, and a lot of people, until I start talking about it, or until you start talking about it, and someone says you have a relationship with money, then a lot of people will be like, "Oh yeah, I guess I do."
Okay.
But
Right.
if you just think money is this inanimate object that, but also that money is a lot of times people think it's like the curse of life. It's the worst thing in the world. It's out to get me, all these kind of things. Well,
Right. Wow.
to know if you have a relationship with something, just see if there's a thought loop. That's how I describe it. If someone's like, I don't know. But if you think, oh, well, especially with money, like, oh, I wish I never had to deal with money. And that's a thought loop. So you just have a relationship where you're saying, I want to avoid this, or I feel, I believe that I have no power here. So we want to see what that relationship is by just listening to the thought loops that are coming up.
Right.
And common one is there'll never be enough money, or another common one is if I just made more money, everything would work out.
Right.
Now sometimes, there's a numerical quantity there, but when the belief is if I just made more money, then what we might have going on is some feelings of powerlessness. And if you feel powerless, you make certain decisions, such as if you feel like there's no hope and you feel powerless, why would you check your bank account? Why would you look at your credit card balance? Because it's going to be awful. So why would you do it? So, it's like once we start to see that, and then financial therapy is so lovely because we don't have to rush. We're looking at these things slowly. We approach it. So sometimes I'll actually log on with people for the first time in years that they've logged on to their bank account, and we do it in session because I work virtually. So we're sharing a screen.
Right.
We do it together. They have the emotional support and also the zero judgment. That's a big part of it too. So I'm not judging.
Right.
Because they have no idea what it's going to say because they haven't looked at it.
Yeah. And anybody listening, don't feel bad, because I would say most people are in the same boat. So you're together with everyone, me included.
Absolutely.
Now, I've gotten better, but I was there too. I think we were all there at one point. Right.
Oh, me too.
Right.
Like,
so no judgment.
I didn't start out perfect with money. Yeah. Well, in fact, Jeff, I have 10 principles of financial therapy. So we'll talk about a few of them. But the first one, I always say the first one has to come first. The others come in whatever order. But the first one is approaching money with abundant, compassionate curiosity and zero judgment.
That's great.
And
that's
is
perfect.
the foundational shift that for most people will really change the game. Yeah.
Yeah. And I have thoughts on that other thing, like just thinking about money now, right? It's like there are people out there that'll tell you, like, the only way to win this game is just to make all the money in the world, and then you'll be fine and you don't have to think about it.
Right.
And that's one way. But the thing is like, you're never going to really, there's downsides to that, right? So let's talk about that. Like you can come at it from a couple different ways. You can say, I want to reduce my spending, or at least get like clarity and know what I'm spending. Like I want to know that. 'Cause that's huge.
Yes.
That's huge, right?
Yes.
And then if you think, okay, well, now there's a delta between what's in there and what I want to make, right? That's a separate thing. That, nothing wrong with that. If that's what you want to do, go for it. Right. But you don't have to. That's not the only way, I guess, is what I'm trying to say.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. And that's really important to look at. There's not just one way to do money.
Right.
And also to accept the truth that money is never done. And so that's hard too, because so you put out so many good things right there. So let me say first, does it matter how much money you have? A lot of people will assume right away that I'm working with people who don't have any money and are trying to get some. But actually, I find a lot of my clients have a good bit of resources and feel overwhelmed by it. Even research has said that inherited wealth.
Right.
I think it's upwards of 70% of people who inherit wealth feel it's a burden. And those are some of my loveliest clients that we're working on that, because they also find, how do I tell someone I feel burdened by X millions of dollars? Because most people will be like, good problem to have.
Oh, shut up. Whine. Quit your whining.
Yeah.
Right.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
I have personal experience in this. My parents, I think they got like not a lot of money, but like to them, it, like my cousin said, she's an attorney. She has resources, right? Okay. And she's like, boy, that money in the bank to them is like $1 million. It's like infinity money, right? Because they've never had money, Yeah. Right. So like when I offer to my dad, I'm like, if you want me to, I could earn interest with that money. He's like, don't worry about it. I don't want to get burned. I'm like, right. It's a checking account, Dad, but okay, it's your money. I'll leave you alone. Right. Anyway. Right.
Yeah. Oh no, that's
that
common.
Money when you don't know, extra money, like say like I'm a big fan of the Motley Fool.
Yeah. And
the Motley Fool has a series, I think. They change all the time, so it's probably different now. Okay. But back in the day, they had a very stark and realistic view of, oh shit, I just won the lottery.
Right.
And that's the truth. That is the truth. Because you don't know what to do. You don't know what to do. You need so much help. So like absolutely. I've actually done research about like, if I were to win the lottery, what would I do? You hire an accountant, get an attorney. You've got so much to do, right?
Well, and pull that financial therapist in and write down some thoughts and feelings first. Like that would be your first thing. To journal about it, to take some deep breaths.
Call Wendy, and then she can help you hire the team.
Exactly.
There you go.
Because you want to acknowledge those feelings. So that they're not driving the bus, so to speak. Yeah.
Yeah.
I guess if you won the lottery, maybe they're driving the plane, but yes.
Oh God, no. Yes. I was watching a TV show about like people that have money. So like people that don't have money just assume that rich people know what they're doing.
Absolutely.
They don't.
Yeah.
Just look at all those pro athletes that go broke as soon as they get done playing. It's sad, but it's something that we need to invest in. Okay.
Yeah.
That was great. Yeah. So yes. And I think we've got so much to talk about. We could do parts 3 and 4. I'm already thinking about part 2, but anyway, let's keep going. So now we're getting really close to taxes. And I don't know why, so we can talk about it. But for whatever reason now, I just quit my job because of that financial independence, retire early thing. So I was like, hey, the number says I can quit my job. I'm quitting my job.
Okay.
And that happened May of 2023. Well, April, May. Yeah, somewhere around there. And then at the end of 2023, well, this year, I just did my taxes and I'm like, damn it. Why do I have to pay?
Yes.
So anyway.
I bet 99% of listeners would just agree with you on that exact phrase. Damn it. Why do I have to pay this? Absolutely. Yes. Yes.
True.
Yes. It's very emotional. Taxes tend to be very emotional, and the non-payment of taxes tends to be more common than you think.
Really?
And it's also emotional because there's
I have to pay that penalty. It makes you feel bad.
Well, yeah, there's a lot of avoidance when it comes to taxes because of a lot of different reasons. So yes. Okay. Thank you for raising your hand. Yeah. So it's really helpful to, I say, snuggle up with your avoidance, like make friends with it. Let's, find out what's under it so that you can step into that freedom of knowing taxes are included in your plan.
Right.
And that your plan is not just projected out for this day or this week, which a lot of people live by the week. It's very stressful, right? Or by the month, like how I'm going to make it through the month. But if you stretch that plan out to a year, then 5 years, then 10 years. And you can project a lot of your taxes based on common math,
I need
formulas.
That. Yeah.
Yeah. And so it helps because then you've crushed the avoidance, you have it in the plan, and it tends to be calmer. Okay. It's still not fun. I'm not going to say taxes are fun. For me, when I think about taxes, I live in Colorado and I enjoy the outdoors all year round. And so I do sometimes have these, super nerdy thought. I'm just acknowledging
Please.
I'm a nerd.
Bring on the nerd. Because I love it.
I know. Because I'll be like on a hiking trail and I'll be like, okay, part of my taxes, helped with this. Or if I'm on the road to the mountains, I'm like, yeah, part of my taxes, this is part of what I'm paying for. Now, Of course, in Colorado, if you start talking about I-70 to the mountains, you're going to get like 58,000 negative, like, why? Because there's so much traffic. So I get that part. And I wish my taxes was fixing that.
Right.
But, there's places where if you want to change the meaning, so if you only feel like you were just robbed by a pirate when you pay your taxes, there's a feeling there, right?
Right.
But if you're able to say, I'm making this a part of my life, it is, it's a part of this, it's not perfect, and that kind of thing. So therefore, you can then, make peace with the fact that you're paying taxes, but you can also say, okay, then I want to increase my income so that I can contribute individually to causes that are important to me. So there's ways that you want to define the meaning of whatever you're paying for, and then see how it fits in your overall plan and with your values and things like that.
That's awesome. Yeah. Because all I think about is just like, I'm screwing up and I'm not doing this right.
Yeah. Okay.
Right? That's the way, that's where my thoughts go. Like if I were doing this right, I would pay like $100 a year. Right. That's like my perfect sweet spot. Like I landed that plane perfectly.
Perfect. Yes.
You know what I mean?
That's good to notice.
Yeah. Right. I did that once.
And make that your goal.
There you go.
Yeah. Well, and then because, we were talking about pulling in a team. So then you pull in your team of the financial people and say, look, this is my goal. Here's how can we do this? And maybe there's things that they can do to work that out.
Yeah. Come up with that all important plan that we were talking about.
Right. Gosh, it makes such a difference. It does make a difference.
Right. So let's talk about this plan. So what do you put in the plan? I mean, when you just say money plan or financial plan, what is all in there? Obviously, taxes, bills, all the things that, obvious stuff. But what's the maybe not so obvious stuff?
That's a really good way to look at it. Like what goes in the plan, and we have the obvious and the non-obvious, because when we're looking at a plan, and hopefully somebody's noticed that I'm very specifically not using the word budget, because budget tends to have an emotional baggage suitcase full itself. And so that's one of my principles, is that budget, and I didn't make this up, but it's important. Budget is to money what diet is to food. It's a word that speaks about restriction, scarcity. It's almost like, often this word has this idea of you're already failing coming out of the gate. And this is just the energy that the people I have. Yeah. I have clients define the word. And then I use the word plan. A lot of people will use the word plan. But what I encourage my clients to do, and anyone who is listening, and you can do this too, Jeff, is to find a word that represents flexibility and stability, like these kind of things. So I like the word plan. And then my principle is that a plan is only as good as its adjustment process.
Okay.
And that's a biggie, because a lot of people will spend a lot of time, and budget apps, they're great. They have their place for some things, but they also are so pretty, and they have all the colors and they have all the categories, and you could spend 3 or 4 hours putting it together. And then a month later, you're like, oh yeah,
I did that.
I think Yeah. Yeah. And most people have done it about 10 times and they can't figure out, and shame usually is the, one of the things that pops up, because shame usually blames you for anything that doesn't go right, because shame is very like short-sighted and wrong. So if then we blame ourselves and we're like, I just can't stick to a budget. Okay. Well, that's the truth. So then we come into, okay, what is a plan? And I do what I call soft planning. So when I'm talking to people, I say, because they'll come in with a lot of shoulds, like, oh, I'll Google a family of 4 should only spend blank on whatever. I'm like, okay, so that's a number we'll start with. Maybe it's for the mortgage or for rent or for groceries. And so we'll start with that number and they'll say, well, how does that feel? How does that number feel? Let's plug it in. Let's look how it works out with the whole rest of your life. Because when we make individualized decisions about each number, we are attaching it to things we're not aware of. So like, like you have this idea of, I should only pay $100 in tax. Well, I want to only pay $100 in taxes. So you have this number and we get attached to these numbers and then we kind of build our life on that. But what we want to do is we want to look at the whole thing. And we want to look ahead, not behind, because a lot of budgets just look at what you did. And by then it's too late. It's like, oh, shoot, that was not so great.
That's not even a plan.
No, it's not. So I like ones that look out. There's a handful that will really help you look in the future and see. But it takes a lot of courage to do that, because what if you get an answer you don't like? What if your housing is, 76% of your take home pay? There's a question there of like, do you like that? I don't come in and say, you shouldn't do that. I'm just like, do you like that?
Right.
Do you like the feeling? How would it feel if it was, in half? So we do it a lot like that. And it works. It really does make a difference.
Those are big, big decisions. Right? Like I watched this show on Netflix. It was all about money. Something about Your Rich Life or How to Get Rich.
Oh, Ramit. Yeah. Ramit Sethi.
He's great, but I think some of his branding kind of like, turns people off sometimes. Cause like when I point
you always can
at that show, right? They go, oh, I don't want to be rich. Right. So it's like, it doesn't matter. The language that you use is half the battle anyway.
It really is.
It really is. That's why the therapy section or aspect is huge for me. But anyway, I watched that show, and one of the people on the show, like he knew like right away she couldn't afford this condo. Right.
Okay.
She was just married to like this awesome success of I'm a grown up now because I have this condo. Right.
Yeah.
She couldn't afford it. And there was all kinds of reasons why it was a bad deal. Right.
Okay. All right.
Right. And Ramit saw it like right away. It was like with your income level and where you live and the fact that, I think the HOA was like screwing her.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Also, on top of everything else, right?
Yeah. Got to look at the numbers.
Right. So at the end of the show, she was like, I think I need to move. But that's huge, especially,
really is.
Like not as bad. Like if she was married, even worse. Because then you have to talk to somebody else about it, right? A single person can just decide,
Oh, well.
Maybe. Okay. Sorry.
Person,
I've been married too long.
Because what you're talking about is communication, which we kind of touched on earlier. But there is one person that we talk to the most about money.
Yeah.
That we
know who that
aren't always aware of. Who is it?
Me. I mean, myself.
Ourselves. Exactly. Exactly. And we can spend a lot of time and energy in trying to get someone else to tell us something that we want to hear or, avoid talking about it because maybe they'll tell us something we don't want to hear,
Right.
But that's why when I talk about communication, and in the Money Mindset Shift course, we've it is all about self-communication before we get to communication with others, because it's really difficult to change how you communicate with someone else until you change how you communicate to yourself.
True.
And then first you need to hear it. So again, I'm going to bring up journaling again, or,
right.
and, journaling doesn't always have to be, like I use just a notebook. It doesn't have to be something pretty. It does. And it can also be recorded. I have a handful of clients that, do better, like Know Your Brain. They are what is it? Audio processor, so yep. They will record it because they want to hear, it helps them to hear themselves say it out loud. Or
it's easier for some people to do voice memos. Yeah.
Absolutely. So right. No judgment on that either. But what you're doing basically is creating mindfulness and building a pause. So then right. You start. So that's why I asked the question, probably similar, maybe how Ramit did. So I don't find it helpful to barrel in with, and there are some people in the money world who barrel in with, oh my God, are you kidding me? That's the stupidest thing I ever heard. Okay. That's not helpful.
Do that. He doesn't do that.
Yeah. No.
So even when the person is spending way too much money, he's very cool right. about it. He's just cool about it.
Well, because right. 100% guarantee you, they already know this. It's not
right.
a surprise.
Right.
But they don't know how to get out of it.
They don't know how to stop. Right.
Yeah. So the therapeutic part is, these questions like, is this working for you?
Right.
And with money, a big question is this sustainable?
Totally.
Because that pushes you in the future. Can you do this for 5 years? Can you do this for 10 years? So then coming into, okay, how do I make adjustments? And that's, again, a plan is only as good as the adjustment process.
Right.
And so that's a lot of the internal dialogue.
Right. So once you figure out how to talk to yourself, is that the right way to say it?
Yes. Internal dialogue.
You're having an internal dialogue. You're not talking to yourself or whatever. But then when you bring it in, like some of this, like we were talking before we started recording, like you're going to have to talk to a family member, spouse, significant other, right? And without fighting about it, right? My wife and I were talking just briefly, okay, I want to pay extra taxes every month. Maybe we could think about reducing our extra mortgage payment, and she just gave me that look like, no.
Okay.
Let's see what happens is what she said. She's like, let's see what happens, because I already know, like if she had her choice, she just wouldn't have a mortgage. Right.
Okay.
I get that.
Well, that's
valid.
Great.
That's valid. And I kind of, I know that. So, and I'm kind of okay with it. At some point we'll probably, have enough money to just pay it off and it won't really matter. That day could come. Right. But with this historic low, the interest rate is so amazing, I just can't make myself do it right now.
Well, that's a part of the plan. You want to make it a part of the plan with the numbers.
Right.
Yeah. You want to know your numbers and the cost of each dollar.
It's so true. Yes. Yeah. Right.
But more so if can we use that a little bit
of course.
Build some communication around it? Because it's a really great example.
Right.
The first thing that you want to do is, or not the first thing. So I'll tell you some of the things. Let's have each of you talk about the meaning behind having a mortgage and the meaning behind having taxes paid, like what that brings to you, what helps you sleep at night. And so maybe you do have, maybe y'all have very different meanings attached to this and a different backstory. Because often that's why we look back, and I say this to people in therapy, we look back for context. Because if someone grows up with a family message of never have a mortgage, well, then that creates a body memory and a lot of meaning. But maybe the other family grows up, other person grows up with a family who's saying, always prepay your taxes, or maybe they say never pay taxes. And so you hit this on repeat and you don't even know it. Okay. So what happens then when y'all are having a conversation and one of you is saying taxes, let's pay taxes, the other is saying let's pay the mortgage, if you don't know this history, your body, you get an emotional response, and then y'all can end up fighting about mortgages and taxes, and that's not really the fight.
It's not.
That's not even the discussion.
Not really.
Right.
Yes.
Yeah. So when you're able to connect more of those dots, the past, present, and future, I say that a lot about money, if that makes sense to you. Like, money always has a past, present, and future. So,
totally.
We look at that energy and look at, okay, and then we want to plug it into your plan. So your plan becomes this sort of mediator of the discussion.
I like that.
If the plan is that and you already have this sort of mapped out on a piece of paper, that in 10 years, we want to have X number of dollars in assets, period. It doesn't matter if some of that's in the house or not, because then you put the numbers to it. Or maybe the plan is, instead of increasing your taxes, you increase your savings to be prepared for taxes, because you can make money on savings right now. Now, that's not always true, but right now, 5% is, hey, $20.
Yeah.
$20 is $20. So, but you want to do the math. Yeah. So, and then look at the plan and then have the adjustment process. So for a couple, the adjustment process can look like, okay, we'll try this for 2 months and then we'll revisit and see how it felt. And what we thought about it.
Right.
And that's how, and then the couple in a partnership, or if it's a single person, it's fine, because you can tell yourself this. The way you build trust is both of you coming back to that in 2 months. If you say, we're going to do it for 2 months, then make an appointment with yourselves and run the projections, run the numbers, whatever, like look at your plan and say, okay, I like how this feels, or I don't like how this feels. Why don't we maybe do half and half? Raise the taxes a half, pay a little half the mortgage, or whatever. Like, then you begin to move things around. So, but the communication comes in short amounts. So time sensitive is very important also here, so that you don't feel like you're about to fall into a black hole of, I don't know what the heck to do with money, and then have a fight about something you don't even know what you're fighting about. So time sensitive is really helpful, especially if there's been a lot of conflict.
Right. Yeah, I think we're cool. But it does make a really good discussion point for this.
Right.
This
Because
show.
it's very common.
Yeah. Because can we do both? Can we do the extra mortgage payment, and can we do the prepay taxes? Of course.
Yeah.
I already know that, right?
Yes.
I just thought it was something to think about, right?
Well, it's a great example too, Jeff, because neither of you are right or wrong.
Right. No,
and
totally.
so with a lot of times with couples, you'll have two really valid ideas.
Right.
Okay, that's fine. But then we want to bring it into, what do you want as a family? Like, where do you want this to go? And, to be perfectly honest, a lot of couples and singles at this point are charting a new path. And so I really try to soften that for them and say, you are, you're doing something that you have not seen modeled, because often, people in their 30s right now, they had a very different model in their parents.
Right.
So they're making it up as they go. And I think there's a lot of room for compassion and no judgment there. And I tell them, this is your story. What do you want it to be? And that seems to help take some of the edge off of it.
Yeah, and my wife is from Japan, so you probably don't know anything about mortgages in Japan.
Right.
But they
very
basically don't have them. Yeah, they basically just don't have them. I know, right?
Yeah.
So her having a mortgage at all is just foreign to her.
Yeah.
And same with my parents, right?
Yeah.
So my parents, they bought a house, their first house. They bought, I think, because they got an inheritance. Somebody died. They got a little bit of money. They used that as a down payment, and then they got a house, right? So they never really did the ordinary kind of let's go deep in debt.
Okay.
Yeah. Right. And my dad never had credit cards, right? Okay. So you're making me think about all of my past, right? My past is very credit averse.
Okay.
So is hers, right? But I would say this, because I think I spend more time thinking about it, I kind of just start playing with ideas, right?
Yeah.
So it has nothing to do with anything other than, well, I'm kind of bored now. Right?
Yeah.
And I'm just playing with numbers, right? She doesn't want to play with numbers, right? But I occasionally do, right? So I just learned something. If I want to play, I don't necessarily need to mention that I'm playing right away, unless I think we really need to talk about it. Does that make sense?
Well, yeah, it really does, because what you're recognizing is, and the way I would phrase this is, no two people have the same relationship to numbers.
Right.
And no two people, in my experience, have the same relationship to spreadsheets, but there is a belief in it, that you have to be good with spreadsheets to be good with money. I'm here to say that's not true.
No.
But there's a lot of that. So when I'm with couples, I encourage them to think about, what is your learning style?
Okay.
And and then
makes sense.
to be able to say, because you're also bringing up something really, really important and beautiful here, Jeff, too, that you want to really understand what the identity issue is with whatever money thing you're talking about. Because for y'all, it sounds like there's a little bit of identity of it could go all the way to I'm a good or bad person. So we also we want to notice that, because that's really powerful. But like if your culture told you any kind of debt is bad, and then you have debt and you are a bad person,
right?
There's going to be a lot of emotionally intense, and I'm going to use air quotes, bad person, because you're not.
Right.
But
right.
but
your
the emotional
internal
intensity.
dialogue is telling you anybody
absolutely.
with debt is a bad person. Right.
Right. Which is so not true.
Right.
So not true.
Right.
But we hear it from different places. So being able to do that and come into it with neutrality, so that it feels just like, if you forgot to take your lunch to work, do you feel, well, some people do feel like they're a bad person. So, or if you forgot to put gas in the car and it's almost on empty or whatever, think of some things that you can do that you feel neutral about, and then begin to pull that energy into money. Because that's another one of my principles, is there's no good or bad. There just is with money.
Yeah, you're right. It's more, I had another guest on, the debt-free dad, and he's like, and again, he's like, the education is out there, getting to debt-free. It's not a lack of education. It's all out there and it's all free. The therapy part is huge.
Right. It's huge.
It's huge, because why don't people do it? Right. It's all because of all the emotions. Yes.
These emotions, the sense of self.
Right.
That's why I will scream out, do not get out of debt. Do not get out of debt until you know how to stay out of debt.
Right.
Because
that's
the bigger thing. So I work with people. It's very unique, and they often are like, what? Are you kidding me?
Yeah.
I need a plan to get out of debt. I'm like, no. First, we're going to figure out how to stay out of debt. We want to know the emotions behind it, the role it's played in their life.
That's huge.
The spend. Yeah. Yeah. And so that is, and I'll probably do another online program or something to help people sort of come into that, because it's a very big shift mentally and emotionally. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Well, the thing is I know I've heard people sort of compare it to bleeding, right? It doesn't really equate though, because that would be a very slow bleed, because you're alive now, right? You're financially alive.
Yeah.
Somehow, very stressfully, you're making it from week to week or month to month or whatever. So if you use that sort of triage kind of analogy, I guess it is, I get it. It's first I have to stop the bleeding, right? But is that really it's not gonna fix the problem. You need to stop. You got to stop poking yourself, I guess. Stop stabbing yourself.
See what is continually wounding you.
Right.
I guess
there you
in
go.
that metaphor. Yeah.
Right. Stop cutting yourself.
Yeah.
or whatever. Yeah.
Kind of asking that question, is this sustainable?
Totally.
And that's most people will say it's not. I hate
let's
my
say
debt cycle. And all that.
Let's say you just boom, get some money, like an inheritance or a lottery win or whatever, and you pay down all your
debt off.
You pay down all your debt, and then a year later it's going to be all back because you haven't done the thing. Right.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. It's so important. Mm-hmm.
Wendy, I think you should definitely come back because we could keep talking forever.
I'd love to.
You should.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
You should.
Yeah. Yeah. And listeners, like, can they send in their questions? Then we can kind of tackle like what's really important to them. Cause I love doing that.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. I don't know where they'd send them to. Do you want to send them to you?
They send them to me.
There you go.
Wendy at financialtherapysolutions.com. Yeah.
And if you're the first 5 people to ask about, you can be a beta tester. So do that.
I know. That is a fantastic. It's a great resource. Sorry if I do say so myself. Yes.
But it's needed. Everybody needs financial therapy, or at least a plan.
Right.
But I think the therapy part is maybe bigger than the education and the numbers in the spreadsheet. You know, the journaling. That we all need that.
Yes. Yeah. And it's the kindness, the compassion, and no judgment.
Right.
Yeah.
This has been a blast, Wendy.
Thanks, Jeff.
This has been fun. I learned. You learned? I don't know. You probably didn't learn anything, but I learned.
Always learning. Yeah.
So thanks for hanging out with me for about an hour and helping me learn about me and my money relationship a little bit. You have a good one.
All right.
Thanks for taking the time to ride along with us on another episode of Vroom Vroom Veer. For podcast info and show notes, be sure to head over to vvveer.com. That's VVER.com. Man, that's fun to say. And we'll catch up with you next time here on Vroom Vroom Veer.